Oh, so it's Mike here, and as you can see, this is more of a tier list video of, I guess, just like cartoons growing up. I've been not making too much content recently, and just wanna dip my feet back into just like, I guess, just like being comfortable, just like talking about just things I'm interested in, and again, in addition to other things. With having said that, I guess let's just get started. So for the first one, I honestly couldn't really tell you. I think for this, it's that I'm a 2000s kid, and with that, it's grew up with like the 2010s Cartoon Network, and going off of that bias, just seeing just like what cartoons I watch and just different things from there. So for the first one, I honestly couldn't tell you. But for the second one, I remember 16 a good bit. I actually remember watching it a good bit on Cartoon Network, but then I saw that someone actually like uploaded a good portion of it onto just like the interwebs. But from my understanding, it was like a Canadian show that got ported over to like Cartoon Network, similar to like say Total Drama Island or different ones of the sort. But I think it was a really well produced show at the time because it has these 16-year-olds and they just have their space or third place at this mall, and it just follows all the random shenanigans with them. And from my understanding, it had like Jonesy, Nikki, Wyatt, Caitlin, Jen, and all of the different characters. And it was just fun to see just what they're up to and just everyday things. With that said, I'd probably place them around like an A, and I'd say it's just like a good starter from there. I'd say going from here, pup named Scooby. I feel bad because I watched like Mystery Incorporated and just like different other ones, but I feel like I'm either too young or at the time just like not really attached to some of these. So just like have those biases in mind. For me, I haven't really watched Adventure Time. Like it wasn't really for me, so I'm not really one to speak of it one way or another. For this one, I cannot say I'm very familiar with it. But Gumball over here, I'm gonna put up an S tier. I think it's well deserved in terms of how they built out the characters and went from there. This one, this I'm not quite familiar with, so I will be throwing it here in terms of not really remembering. This one I will put into what is this, as in I really have no idea. For this one, I think it's like I don't recall watching it, but I would assume it's more like Saturday morning cartoons and the like, because I once again just remember watching the 2010s ones where there's a Looney Tunes reboot in which just like Daffy and Bugs more as just like more millennial or just like adults altogether and just following their random shenanigans as they had it. For this one, I feel bad because it's like I've seen Brave and the Bold, unless I misspoke the title here. But for this one, I can't say I've watched it altogether, so I don't have a bias one way or another. But for this one, I'd say place it up here because it's more so that I watched a good bit of it. I remember enjoying the plot, but I don't remember it as much. Now I'm gonna feel guilty, but just like I did enjoy this show a lot, like Ben 10 growing up, just like even like Alien Force and just like the subsequent ones after that, I could say I really appreciated the memories that came from it as a result. I think Alien Force I would place slightly below, and then I'd say for the other ones I am not as quite familiar with, so it's really not in my domain to speak on them, as I just know after the original, just like Ultimatrix and just the plot developments. Like I remember like Ben 10, it was just like Heat Blast and just like the original ones. But then there were just like so many complex ones after you got into like Ultimate Alien and then the other ones as a whole. And then I even remember in like Alien Force, there was an episode where like one of the aliens just sorta got sort of like sentient on their own, and the whole episode was about like Ben and the group and how they're gonna, I guess, just like go against that. But I'd say plot wise, I remember watching just like a whole breakdown video of just like the whole lore and chronology of things. But I'd say it was sort of lost on me after just like Alien Force. Then again, this is speaking to me as I want to say like a 10 to 12-year old at the moment or time being. Let's see. This other one, I remember snippets of it, but I can't say I'm familiar with it altogether. Alright, Camp Laszlo. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to place it in D tier. It's that I didn't quite care for the show itself, and I don't really like the. I can say I appreciate the premise for what it's worth, but I didn't like it enough to like capture my attention fully. Let's see. Oh, for this one, I feel bad because I do not have memories of this at all. Follow up one, this one I'm just not quite sure of altogether. Okay, for Chowder, I am placing it in S tier because I really enjoy Chowder itself as the show. Just like following Chowder among just like the whole family, especially Snitzel. I love that character altogether. But it's just like really laid back type humor that I can appreciate. And I also appreciate like the fourth wall breaks, just like when they just pan to just like the voice actors themselves and just like break the fourth wall and just all the renditions from there. It was a cute show while just like reminiscing on that. Clarence, this is hard for me because I I wouldn't place like C as the title of like mediocre. I'd say it's like it's a very simplistic show, and if you go into it just expecting something more than that, then you're gonna be a bit disappointed. But it's just like a simplistic, enjoyable show for what it's worth. But it didn't really dive too deep into just like I guess just like more than surface level for the character development, and that's sort of where it lost me in terms of things. This one I have no idea. So put in what is this? For this one, similarly, looks like a movie to TV show IP. I'm not quite sure. Code Lyoko, I will place right, maybe right around here. It's that I remember it as just like these kids that just transport themselves into just like this virtual reality world, and they're just like fighting these AI monsters. And I remember remember correctly, there's like a video game IP for this. But for this one, my understanding, it's like a French television show in which it only got so much in terms of I I would say just like the showtime and just how it went on for the first season or so, and just pretty much following the plot of just these teens and how they went into this virtual reality type world and fighting this like AI and just like some something of the sort similar to that plot. I am very rusty on it, but I just remember fond memories of it looking back. Oh, this is a hard one. Code names. Hmm. Kids Next Door. I will place, I'd say middle of the pack for S tier because I fondly remember this one with just all the different shows, and I can appreciate how they also incorporate just like slightly older characters and see how they tied into the plot. Also, just like building just like a diverse lore for just like why number like why all the characters are named after themselves and just like their code names and just inspiration for them. But also just like building them out thoroughly in terms of who each person is, what they play for the plot, and just different things overall. Oh, this is a hard one because this is more or less just like it's a very frightening show growing up because you just don't expect all these different episodes, and it's just like Eustace, I remember correctly, Miriam, and Courage here, and it's just like following them through all these different random plot scenarios of here's this like serial killer or like horror movie type character, and they're in just like insert every single episode just like random villain type character, just like random occurring different characters, and it just sort of scares you as a kid, but it just reminds me a lot of just like different episodes growing up. I can say I it definitely left an impact for better or worse, but I say I liked it for the memories it had. Let's see. Challenge. This is a hard one because it's like I don't remember it one way or another, and this one I only saw clippets or snippets here and there, so I wouldn't be able to speak on it too well. This one I do not know altogether. Similar for this one. This one I would not be able to speak to. Dexter's Law. This is a difficult one for me. I will place it right under Courage, because for this one, it's that I did watch a good bit of it, but I don't think I stuck to finish, because I remember just like the general plot and schematics of things, but it sort of got repetitive after a while for me. But I still do remember it and enjoyed it for what it was worth, though. Let's see. This one. This looks like is that movie to TV? Perhaps. I can't say I've seen this, so I wouldn't really be able to speak to it. For this one, I'd say it's similar where I've heard good things about this one, but I don't really know how to speak for it. Ed, and Eddie. Man, this is core nostalgia right here. I will place it right ahead of Gumball, in which I just enjoy just the whole plot of Ed, and Eddie. Just they'll do anything for Jawbreakers at end of day, but they're built out enough where it's just like Ed's a bit of a delinquent when, but then sorry, Eddie's a bit of a delinquent, but then just making it so that they all have their fleshed out character traits that correspond with them, and just being comfortable with just how the plots unfolded every time. Well, sorry, I'm just at a loss for words because it brings back a lot of memories. Because I remember these three characters. I remember the Kanker sisters. I remember like Rolf, Johnny, just like different characters. It brings back a lot of just like funny moments looking back. Probably misspoke just now for like character names. Well, since like all their names are red. Next up, we have I could not tell you. Yeah, Foster. This is this is difficult. I will place them right ahead of code names because I'd say for this one, it's I really enjoy just like Mac and Blue and just like how the creator built out the world, but then they just how how they built out just like this home for imaginary friends of just like you have like Will over there, you have like Eduardo, you have just Frankie, you have I I'm at a loss for words. Halfly because I probably forgot like half the characters' names for half these shows. But I'd say for this one, I probably remember how the plot unfolds in terms of just the different arcs and the different characters at hand. I finally remember one where it's like Blue was going to get adopted, and they were trying to do everything to sort of just like not get him adopted at the end of the day because long term he's there with Mac and just wanting it to just stay the course and be able to be with one another. But I'd say strongly enjoyed this one as a whole. Man, I feel bad. I feel like I would be one to watch a Garfield, but I have never sat down and watched it for a good bit. So unfortunately, it is down here. Generator, and this is. I think I'm more speaking into just more so the potential it had because I I think Generator Rex had more of a short run compared to some of these, but I'd say I really enjoyed the production value of what it was at the time, and I think it had the potential to be a lot more in terms of just story building and just like building out the world from there and just like different characters at hand. But I vaguely remember the plot. It's just like he has this more like mechanic element where he can like manifest just like sorta. I don't want to say it's like a mecha type show, but it's more he has a bunch of more like robotics and like knickknacks in which he's able to like fight these different enemies with, and it follows his exploits from there in terms of things. George and I miss. Uh, I will say I don't quite remember this one because I yeah, I am at a loss for this one because I do not remember it quite much. This is difficult for me. I will place Green Lantern at a B because I don't vividly remember it, but I do have soft spot for just like these superhero ones as a whole. Alright, let's see. Billy and I will place it slightly ahead of Gumball because I do enjoy just the character dynamics and just like what they're up to episode for episode. So I will place it right up here. So for this one, I cannot say I quite remember it. Say this one. I think for this one, I might have seen an episode here and there, but I still can't quite remember it or recall it. This one, this is what is this? As in, I am not too sure. This one I will place right here. Scroll down a bit. Infinity Train. I remember this. This was like past my, or I want to say it's around my high school time where I heard hype for this, but I went around like seeing this, but I don't quite remember it too well. So I will place it as slightly above average, but not quite living up to its potential in terms of you saw just like the general teaser for just like what the show could be, and just not sure how it stands up at the end of the day. I think the only other show that was similar to that in terms of like hype and anticipation was Over the Garden Wall. And from my understanding, I really enjoyed that one in comparison. But that's like apples to oranges. But I'm more speaking to say like hype and other things. Johnny Bravo. Ooh, this is. I think I'll place it at low B here. It's that I do remember seeing reruns here and there, but I just wouldn't stick through watching it the whole way through altogether. As for Johnny Test, I would say, ooh, this is a difficult one. I would place it right before Batman. But I'd say for Johnny Test, it's just like a really good guilty pleasure watch where it's just like you just turn off your brain. There's a talking dog, is just like redhead sisters, and just like the whole. Remember, there's like Bling Bling Boy, or just like a lot of random characters. But I just remember just for this one, just like turn your brain off, don't think about it too much, and it should be a good watch from there. Justice League. Oh man, I will place it right over here, in which I want to say I vaguely remember it, but I remember enough where it's left positive impressions on me altogether, but I don't remember it so much to place it at like an A or an S or like any higher. For the subsequent ones, I cannot say I am as plugged in. Ones from here, I have seen snippets here and there, but I cannot say I know the show altogether. Similar for this one, and similar for this one. Oh, let's see. This one, Royals. I'd say I'm a bit lost in terms of not really knowing that one. Oh, as for Looney Tunes, I will say this goes. Yeah, this is difficult. I would place it a notch higher than Billy and Andy. But I'd say for this, it's a lot of it has more incorporated adult humor, and it's more on the mature side, just versus appealing to say just like kids end of day. But it's pretty much just like Daffy and Daffy and Bugs have such a funny dynamic where Daffy is just doesn't too isn't taking himself too seriously, but he's also just like very headstrong and very just like stubborn in his ways. But Bugs is also that in his own way, but he's just like a know-it-all sort of character and just like sort of following alongside them just side by side. But I can also appreciate how they flesh out just like the different characters beyond surface level of just like what you expect from the cartoons growing up. Well, growing up where I to have watched like the original Looney Tunes as opposed to just like this more recent rendition. But I can appreciate how they built on characters, say like Gossamer or just like the different other ones that I am struggling to. But I guess like they even built out like grandma character in addition to like Elmer, in addition to just like all these different characters, and they're just really memorable and just like really funny from watching it back. Like I remember there's like a high school reunion one with just like it's like Piggy, Daffy, Bugs, and the different ones, and just pretty much has it just like as Daffy, pretty much trying to play it off as he's now like a famous celebrity at the reunion, but in reality, it's not necessarily the case. But it was pretty funny to just like see that set up in terms of things. But they're able to just like build that out and flesh it out for all the episodes, and I really enjoyed watching that. For the follow-up ones, and this is difficult for me because I remember this was just like very cult classic-y, but I just don't remember it enough to really be able to speak about it. Let's see. For this one, I will place it as a I'm not quite sure because for this one, I did enjoy it a good bit from the snippets I've seen, but I don't know enough to speak to it too much. And Flapjack, yeah, this is difficult for me because I would say Flapjack, I would say it's on par with Chowder because they have, I want to say they have just similar producers slash showrunners, or I know that overlap for some of these is that I remember J.G. Quintel where he eventually produced regular show and a series after the fact, but he had an early run of just not necessarily producing, but just like animating and creating for some of these shows, and I can appreciate those memories looking back. But I think for Flapjack, I can also appreciate just like how the character dynamics are with one another, and just not taking it too seriously as a character as a TV series, because end of day they are the hunt for treasure, like candy, in addition to other things, and they live in like a blue whale, and they just like do random errands around the town and just like get in trouble and just like do random wacky things, and it's not that serious as a show, but just looking back at it, I can appreciate it for what it's worth. Mega XL. For this one, I've heard high praises for it, but I cannot say I've seen it, so I cannot quite speak to it. For this one, I cannot say I'm too sure of what this is. Similar for this one. I guess we are hitting a run of these. I'd say similar for this one, similar for this one. For this one, I don't quite remember it, but I don't fondly remember it. That's the thing. Where I didn't really particularly enjoy the series, so I just cannot speak too highly of it in particular. I think for Ninjago, I'd say it's a certified C because I don't really think highly of like the Lego type shows. But then again, I don't know if I necessarily gave it too much of a chance. So I'm placing it C more reluctantly. This one I'm not too sure of. Over the garden wall, I will place. Ooh, this is a difficult one because it's a more recent one compared to just like different ones comparatively speaking, but judging its merits based on the other ones, I'd say it fits in the middle range of A, but I just don't think it scratches the surface of like say the classics or my deemed S tier. Yeah, that sounds pretentious as hell, but I I think it's more so over the garden wall isn't necessarily my favorite type of genre show, but it did really well in terms of execution style of it. going from here, this was a really solid show, but I feel like I just never gave it a chance besides trailers and just Saturday morning cartoons or different ones I'd see here and there. So for those reasons, I cannot really speak too much of it. Powerpuff Girls, I will place, I'd say lower end of A. It's that I do fairly remember the plot of just like Mojo Jojo, the father, and just like how the different plot elements unfold episode to episode. But I think in a sit down, like long term plot element side of things, I don't quite remember it from that point. I thought of it more as a sit down and watch just like random episode here and there. Not not that different series reflected on here aren't the case, but I just didn't see myself sitting down and watching it, just like as a kid in particular. For this one, I will say didn't watch this after the fact. I think for this one, I don't have fond memories of. I think it was more like a silly type show or trying to be that, so I can't say I remember it too well. For regular show, I will place it. I'd say it's a top tier one for me. I really enjoy JG Quintel's just like type of humor, even though you just get the general premise of things after a while, where it's they have a minor inconvenience or like random plot element, but then it cycles through like some sci-fi type or like some fantasy type one, and they're all engaged in just like some random action scenes. But I really remember this one a lot by especially like the whole premise of how they're just like these counselors, but then there's also like Benson, Skips, Pops, and just like these just general everyday characters you'd see in day-to-day life, but they're all just like I I think the term's like anthropomorphized, where they're just like animals and just like inanimate objects, but it adds quite a bit of charm to the show altogether. From my understanding, there's another show. I remember watching it after the fact, but it's in the same universe and it's also by J.G. Quintel. For this one, let's see. I would not know this one. Similar to this. And I feel like I've done disservice by saying I've seen episodes here and there of Samurai Jack, but I do not know enough to really speak to it fully. Let's see. Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated. I will place that at. I place it at a high S because I'd say I remember. I wouldn't say vividly, but I like the show for what it was worth. In addition, and to just the character building and just how they fleshed out the universe from there. I can't really speak to more recent ones, say the one with like Velma on HBO or just like different other ones. But I think Scooby Doo for me was I watched this one. I watched like I want to see movies of like real with like real people. I said real people, but you know what I mean, like actors, like real real life renditions of it together. But besides that, I think this was the primary Scooby Doo one I've seen. From here, I'd say I do not know this one too well. Similar for this one. Similar for this one. Unfortunately, this will be the theme for a bit. This seems more like an Adult Swim one. Place it slightly B, in which I'd say for this, it's that I would watch this occasionally where I to like stay up late and just like see this on like as reruns, but I don't have firm memory of it as a show in itself. But I do remember it has just like guest hosts in addition to just like random characters that would come by here and there, and it captured my attention for what it was worth. Squirrel, I do not remember this. Oh, for these, let's see, place these as slightly higher. I will say I will group these Star Wars ones together because I'd say Clone Wars I enjoyed a good bit. This one I don't remember as much, but I remember this was more my introduction to the Star Wars universe. As I saw these before, just bef I'd say before just like the movies in itself, from just like the initial ones to just like Last Jedi, in addition to just like where we are at today in terms of the whole series. But I'd say it's a pretty good intro for what it's worth. Static Shock. I will place this. I'd say for this one, I'm judging it similar to January Rex, where it had a lot of potential, but it didn't stay for a long run. But I can appreciate how they talked about just more topical contemporary issues in addition to just like being a cartoon in itself. But it was also pretty entertaining for the episodes, like episode to episode. Steven Universe. I'm gonna feel bad and say like I have never really watched or dived into it, so I am not the person to ask about it or speak to it. For these, this is a series of I am not too quite sure of. Let's see. For this one, I vaguely remember, but at the same time, I don't have enough confidence to really speak on it. Teen Titans Go. I think I'll place it on like a C in terms of maybe it's not meant for me, given the background of the initial Teen Titans and the run it had. But based on the premise of itself as a show, I will place it as a C in my eyes as more like an average type one. As for Teen Titans itself, I will say it is. Ooh, I'd like to place it as a higher S tier one in terms of I really enjoy the dynamic. I think I said dynamic too many times, but it's just like how they get along with one another, which still means the word dynamic, by the way. But it's pretty much I like how they set each other up, where it's like here's Raven, here's Cyborg, here's Beast Boy, here's Starfire, Robin. They they fill in each other's just like gaps in terms of just character quirks, character strengths, and just like different parts of each other. But that's what makes them like a full-fledged team altogether, and it gets them through like thick and thin through the different plot elements, and you can really see it through just like season to season. And I'd rather not spoil just like different parts of it as they go through just like different other hero arcs in addition to just like the just like main antagonist in terms of like what he wants to do. But I think they did enough world building here where it's you got a good sense of the different main characters, where they're at, who they are as people, and just like their core motivations as to like why they fight crime in addition to why they're affiliated with these group of Teen Titans as superheroes. Thanks for coming to TED Talk. I will say that then probably. For these, I'd say the series of I'm not quite sure as well. Ooh, this is difficult for me because I really enjoyed Total Drama Island, but I'm not quite sure where to place them because they are a guilty watch of a show. But I will say fits snugly at a middle of A1, I want to say. Similar to Redonkulous Race, where it's more of a spin-off type one, but I enjoyed it for what it was worth. I cannot say I watched this spin-off for what it's worth though. Totally Spies. I heard this is getting a reboot, but I cannot say I watched it for. I do not quite have memories of it one way or another. Transformers. I can't say I've seen really like cartoon renditions of it, so I can't speak to it. Cool, Grandpa. I'll place. I think like a C tier because I didn't really resonate with the humor and it wasn't really made for me, so I'm not quite sure. This one, not too sure of. Not too sure of. Not too sure of. We Bare Bears, I'd say the closest comparison I had would be like a Clarence, where it's like, it's very simple and surface level for what it's worth. But I think We Bare Bears digs a bit deeper, where even though they mainly focus on these bear type characters, they have the character development of building them further and sort of humanizing them. Even like humanizing like a Bigfoot type character in terms of just like the character development of just like them as people, just like even if it's just like really basic character emotion, just like just like say like jealousy or like anger, fear, or like happiness and like different things. I really found it to be a cute little series that you could just sort of watch casually. This one I'm not too sure of. Not too sure of. This one I can speak too fondly of, but I think for this it's like I don't remember it as well, so I will have to place it like here-ish. So I just don't firmly remember it too well, but I would say it's like close to certified classic for what it is. From here, I will say not too sure of this one. Not too sure. I'm sorry, but this is not one I see as just a Cartoon Network show. I know a lot of like YouTube series or like creators are going over to like prime time or just like traditional TV now, but I just don't think it was a one-to-one fit for this series. But I did enjoy it a lot as a kid. This one I'm not too familiar with or can't speak too much on. Not too familiar with. And similarly for these ones closing it out. But I'd say that was a wrap. But I'd say for this, I really lean to more of the childhood nostalgia of, say, like Chowder, Flapjack, and Regular Show. I also really enjoyed, say, like Canadian counterparts where it's just like 16 or Tolo Drama, or like even the French one. Not no disrespect to like French people, where it's like Kolyoko or just like random other ones. I'd say for the whole thing in a nutshell, I think it's just been pretty fun to see just like the childhood nostalgia that this carries with it. But I think that's about all I have for today. But this was sort of fun to make. And thanks if you stuck it through or watched snippets of it here and there. As always, don't forget to be awesome.